we have just seen the most tremendous hour of performance from a group of people, and the issue is about ethics. And the way in which that was described to everybody was, I found, particularly fascinating. And so what we've done is we brought that group of people together, and what I'm going to do is ask them each to just give a view and some comments on how they think the people who were looking in online should receive the kind of message that you were giving. So if you had to think of just one thing to say to people out there, that may be researchers, other people that would normally either be part of groups like the one that you've just participated in, or to the professionals who would have been looking at it. What's the one thing that you would love them to take away from this? Maybe it's the fact that this tool is really useful, but I'm sure they'd love to get your personal views on how this all works. So I'm going to start with you. And you wrote the piece, yes? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I developed the piece through different activities while we were at the University of Durham. And I think the thing I want people to take away is that you need to think about how things impact on other people, that when you go into an environment, that you need to listen to you need to communicate with those people and talk to them as equals. And yeah.
I guess I would say that it is a good idea you can take a step back from the situation, consider who exactly the people are that you're dealing with, and actually think about the best way to approach the situation. Don't just go with your gut instinct about it, because these people are probably coming from a different background than you are and don't quite have the same, probably don't feel the same way about the situation as you do.
Yeah, and I agree with you in the way that, because if you do come from a different background to how most professionals would view it, you have to make sure that the community, as our group has a very close-knit bond, you have to be sure that we know what's going on and who you're dealing with know what's going on before you take the big step of everything has to be official. Because if we and other young people that you may work with or other groups that you work with are uncomfortable, then the research may be affected negatively. So it's sorting out the short term to make the long term even better.
Well, obviously the kind of main focus of the piece was ethics and consent forms, but I think it was a really important part of at the end when Luke accidentally misgendered Toby, that it brings to light trans issues and pronouns, and I hope that people can take away that they can kind of see those issues and be more aware of those type of things.
So in similar ways to what Ruby said, that sometimes you've got to understand the people that you're working with and the academics, that understand your community properly before you embark on any kind of research with them, and that could be understanding that you want the same kind of thing in terms of research, but also that they understand the way you work and sort of specific requirements of your group.
And I suppose for me, what I like about the possibilities that Forum Theatre, I guess, kind of creates is the possibility of change. So I think we've probably all been involved in projects of various kinds where there's those kind of moments when you're thinking, something's not quite right, but you plough on anyway. And I love that dimension of Forum Theatre where you get up and you act and you interrupt kind of proceedings and you make something else happen, and hopefully kind of something better. And I suppose that's what I would like people to take away from the kind of performance, the kind of possibility of doing things differently, and of just taking that moment to intervene differently and do something differently and to make something possible, because you can see how really quickly a project can fall apart, but also actually how it would take in some ways very, very little to keep that project on track. So I suppose, yeah.
Thank you, and I guess that having sat through this and as someone who's not involved in this every day, but having been in the academic community a long time ago, I like the idea of the Forum Theatre, because it seems to me it's a framework in which the professionals can very gently have all of their inhibitions gently removed to the point where what they actually think and how they actually communicate with people becomes much more obvious to them, and that's what tends to get in the way if I take the meaning of the session. And the two things that really struck me in the entire session, particularly obviously because you were tending to be quite the protagonist in that piece, was almost that empathy was the one thing that seemed almost to be missing, and the other element was respect, and you have to have empathy and respect, and it's almost like that's what you've got to put into someone who may have been brought into the situation through training that narrows everything down, and you've got to use the forum theatre to broaden that out. Everybody nods at me. That's great. Again, it was a fabulous piece. I enjoyed it tremendously, and I know the audience did too. Thank you all very much for taking part, and that's all we'll have time for today.